Alright, let's start this thing. Hi. I'm Archer with a Sword. And we're finally gonna get back into the whole ADD, ADHD thing that we were talking about, and maybe some things to help. One moment. So last time I discussed a little bit about, what was it? The types of learning, which is like auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and man, it's been so long. Maybe you remember that video. If not, please go watch it again. And after the video was posted, a friend of mine, we were discussing it. He's like, that was nice. I'm like, yeah. He's like, even though they don't really do the learning method anymore, like, or the different learning styles anymore. I was like, what do you mean? I remember doing this in school. He's like, well, yeah, schools still use it, but it's been kind of disproven as, a legit thing. Because as I mentioned earlier in the other video, everybody is a little bit of everything. Not everyone is just a visual learner or an auditory learner, and that's it. Everybody is a mishmash of both. But it's still used in schools. Schools still use it because, it's a good way for teachers to get to know their students and how they prefer learning. And because there is still some truth to it, because, one kid might get something, by watching it, and another person might get it even better by, doing it. It's just that, over time, you should be able to learn and cope and, gain information in all ways, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. But, yeah, there's still some truth to that, because students still learn better other ways. It's just that over time, you really, as you grow up, you're not going to be able to, as an employee, you won't be able to say, hey, boss, I didn't get what you said. Show me something rather than read it. Sometimes you won't have that luxury. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can say, hey, I didn't really get what you're saying. Can you demonstrate that for me and then let me do it while you're watching? Sometimes employers and other employees for employees to say, hey, I didn't get it. Can you show me a different way? Sometimes that's really useful to them. Oh, thank gosh, they're actually taking this job seriously. They just don't get it yet. Other times, it's the workplace and it's busy and you don't get to do that. But anyway, we're getting to the point, I promise. But that's just a recap of what I was saying in the other video. No, it's not scientifically, yes, everybody has a different way and such, but it's still very important, I think, for teachers to know what their students prefer and how they prefer to learn. And it's important for parents to understand what their kid prefers doing, especially if you're a kid with ADD and ADHD. When I was a kid, I couldn't get spelling. I couldn't just look at the word and be like, oh, it's spelled like that. My mom and I would have to sit down, make note cards, and I would have to audibly say it. Sorry, my plant is moving, and my plant is making the camera move because it's shaking on the table. We're gonna move the little friend over here. Anyway, so we would have to make these note cards, and I would have to say them. And I would have to hear how my mother spelled it if I got it wrong. That was just, grammar. Reading. I hated reading, by myself. So I would prefer reading, really, if, as a class, we read and we took turns reading paragraphs. It was just one of those things where I would get very distracted. I wouldn't want to do it, and I would, stare into space. Because, ADD. I would just be like... just not... I might have even wanted to learn, but it was really, really hard for me to stay focused. But anyway, so not every teacher really at least at the time that I was in school, not every teacher really understood what to do with a student with ADD and ADHD. So it really came to the parent and the specialist that they had, to deal with ADD and ADHD to come up with coping mechanisms and come up with other ways to learn a subject. Because, a teacher would sometimes just not know. Some schools, a lot of schools really should, if they don't, have, places that a student with, learning issues can go to, like a tutor or someone like in the school facility. In elementary school, I had a tutor, and, there would be several of us from the same grade who would go to that tutor, and we would just work on homework, and we would work on, lessons that we didn't get the day before. And, the tutor that we had was really calm, and she really tried really, really hard to just teach something in a different way. Even if it meant that she had to personify, like, numbers to me for me to get the math lesson. This was in 3rd grade, so, if anything was personified to me, I'd be like, oh, now I'm invested, because there's a character arc with these double digits. But any little thing that wasn't hammering out the same lesson over and over. And that's what really happens a lot for teachers who don't know how to teach a student with ADD and ADHD. They just keep repeating the same lesson over and over into the child's head. Like, no, why don't you get it? I don't know. It's probably because I don't understand what you're saying to me and I learned differently. I've had that happen to me, and it was frustrating. It was in high school. I had a math teacher who, and math is not my favorite subject at all. So not only was I just fed up with it if I didn't understand it, but I would be trying really, really hard, and I'd just be like, why the heck can I not understand this? And she would try to help me the best that she could. During a period where we could do homework quietly, or, even in the next period or study, my study hall, she would try to explain it to me. But the way that she would explain it was that she would just, sorry, there we go. Was she would just repeat the lesson that she gave, the next period, from the earlier period. And sometimes that would help because really they were miles ahead of me and I would be lagging 3 pages over still writing down notes. But sometimes I was really I still don't get it. I still don't get any of this. And she's like, okay, that's fine. We'll try a different approach. And by different approach, she meant she would say the same thing over and over again. And it just wouldn't work. So my mom and I would have to go to a tutor outside of school. It was a professor who worked at, a college, and he was like, oh, I'll tutor you. And he was fantastic because, there were different ways to do math. I'm sorry, I'm going to move you over. A lot of people say, well, there's a new math, and I can't help my kid because we weren't taught this in school, but their teacher is having them learn it this way. I don't understand it. That happened a lot. Where I was doing, I think it was geometry. Yeah, geometry. And my teacher even said, or my tutor even said, this is a really bad way to do geometry. And I'd say, what do you mean, sir? He'd say, this makes you work harder. And it really doesn't always give you, you don't always get the right answer, but if you do it the way that we've been doing it for years, you'll probably get the right answer 100% of the time. So it's, it was that. So really, if your parents can't help you with this new math, don't, it's okay. It's okay, because there's someone who probably does know, and they can teach you the old way. Just, yeah. A lot of focus methods, for me, came from tics, my Tourette's. A lot of coping mechanisms that helped me with ADD, also helped me with Tourette's. I had the bobbing tic at the time, and I had the handshake, and I had the verbal tic. And one of the methods that my neurologist said to me was, well, find something else to focus on. Find something else to focus your energy on. Because, if you're staring off into space and you're focused on absolutely nothing, well, yeah, you're not going to hear anything. But if you focus on just maybe one thing that can keep you grounded in the lesson, you're good. You're golden, hopefully. It's the same thing with conversation. If you are staring past the person, you're not going to hear what they're saying. But, a lot of people say, well, look that person in the eyes and focus on, looking them in the eyes, and that'll help you stay on track with what they're saying. And it really does for me. Looking that person in the eyes while they're talking helps me from getting sidetracked or distracted. And other people are, similar, but maybe it really does depend. The eye contact trick helps me and a lot of other people. But I've talked with other people who say, I have to look down at something and focus on what you're saying that way. It's just, focus on something while your ears do, all the work with listening. For me, if it's a lesson, it's looking up at the board. It's looking up at the board and, looking at what's written while listening, because I can make those word associations with what's on the board and what's being spoken. So whenever I have a professor that is like, oh, I'll just talk and not put up a PowerPoint and not write down, notes on the board, that doesn't really help me a whole lot, because it's so easy for me to just kind of stare blankly. And then I don't hear a word that the professor's saying. Let's see. If it's really hard, because, if you can't find something to do with your hands, as a kinesthetic learner, you can't make something, you can't, do an experiment to help you learn, and you're really more of a hands-on learner, and you have to have something to put your hands on and really, grab it and manipulate it. What helps, do not roll your eyes at me. What can help can be things like little fidget toys. And I kid you not, it's like, I saw those little fidget cubes, where they have the gyro button, the A, B, X, Y button, and the up, down, left, right keys, something like that. And then something that you get to turn and twist. I saw that in the store. I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. Because, we didn't have that whenever I had, ADD. I didn't have that. I was tearing my erasers apart. So I'd be listening to the teacher give his lesson, and I would be shredding my eraser, and eventually there would be this mess of eraser dead body parts on my desk, and my teacher would be like, Archer. Yeah? What is that? Erasers? Did you hear the lesson? Yeah, I heard the lesson. Okay, well that's good. Just please pick up the mess. It was there was nothing that I had that I could really constructively deconstruct, if that makes any sense. That's probably why I liked art class so much. But because at the time we got to use clay, and even those little clay erasers, that helped me a lot, because it was an eraser that you can erase on paper, but it was also this moldable clay. Once I figured out that those existed, I was like, Miss Art Teacher, can I take one of these home? Yeah, absolutely. Why? Because I need to play with it. So for a while that helped a lot. But now there are actually these little fidget cubes, and these little things that you can just mess with. And alright, I understand the issue with fidget spinners. They've become this thing that people don't take seriously. And part of that, I think, is the sound. Other people can get a little distracted by the sound. I would understand that. But at the same time, if I'm somebody who you know, the sound helps me, you know, I would want to be able to use it. It's just one of those things that you can probably use in private and less so in public, I think. I personally use like little stuffed animals, like hand-sized stuffed animals that I can just like touch. I can just have in my hand, you know, feel around the fur and like where the eyes are and stuff like that, and that also helps. Yeah, sometimes if you're working, just one hand on a pencil, one hand with, you know, a fidget cube or a plush animal, or a fidget spinner. That's completely helpful. If it is to you, yeah, use it. Do it. Repetition. Do everything over and over and over again. Like, again, I'm gonna go back to my spelling list example. My mom and I would spell those words all night long. We would study for an hour, take a break, study, break. This was an all-night thing until I could spell the words without a doubt. So, you know, for me and for a lot of kids with, you know, ADD, they can't do something once and just get it. If they can, then that probably means that, you know, they enjoy it, that they enjoy what they're learning and they enjoy what they're doing, and so it's not a problem for them. But for kids who just either don't understand it or aren't interested in it, repetition is so key. Math, anything, just do it over and over again. Man, I know there's probably a lot more that I can say. I'm not a doctor. I'm going to always say that I'm not a doctor. I'm going off of personal experience, and I'm going off of, you know, what other people have gone through. So if, you know, you're trying all that you can with these different methods, but nothing seems to be working, make sure that first you have a physician that you absolutely trust and you can get feedback from, and, you know, will work with you or your kid. And if that doesn't work, consider talking with them about medication. I know that a lot of parents and people don't want to say, well, I think I need medication for this. I know a lot of people don't want to rely on medication. I'm one of those people who doesn't want to have to rely on medication and would rather, you know, tough it out myself. But sometimes, very truthfully, it's helpful. And I might have mentioned this in previous videos, but medication was really different at my age. A lot of medication was made for adults, and so whenever it was given to kids, they'd have to really lower the dose, and even then, you know, the strength of the medication could be too much for the kid. It's hopefully so much better now. Hopefully. I mean, we've had since I was in third grade. We've had like years to hammer it out. Hopefully. If you're struggling with it or your kid is struggling with it, make sure that you're 100% part of their learning. Make sure that you or you have someone that you can go to, even if it's not a physician. Make sure you have someone there to help you and like keep you grounded, keep you focused, and someone that you can talk to. I mean, these things can really bottle up, and it becomes kind of stressful. It becomes stressful, and you kind of start thinking, man, what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. I promise, nothing's wrong with you. Just make sure you have someone with you that you can trust and who can give you wisdom and advice in situations whenever you get stressed or overwhelmed. I got really stressed and overwhelmed, and I still do whenever I have like a big load of classwork and, you know, I feel overwhelmed and, you know, I can't focus or anything. That still happens to me. It's not, some people get over it whenever they're kids, some people don't. Just make sure you have someone to go to. I hope that helped. I really do. OCD. Just one more quick thing. OCD. OCD often comes with having ADD and ADHD. You don't have to have ADD, ADHD to have OCD, but they're very much kind of interwoven together, and they like to buddy up, is what I'll say. I have OCD. It's not terrible. It's not like I have to, wash my hands 5 times after or before getting food. Something like that. It's not too weird, but I'm very meticulous about certain things, and sometimes that is helpful because I'm very detail oriented, and that might make, my job look better. Like what I do might be like, oh, this looks nice, or good job. This is really, attentive. And I'll be like, thank you. And other times it's like, okay, hurry up. What's taking you so long? I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. With what? Paper clips. Paper clip. I haven't done that. If I did that, I'm sure I would be fired from my job. But, if you have ADD, you probably know. It can be really time consuming, but it's all that you can think of, and you can't move on from, what you're doing until you fix whatever needs to be fixed. I understand. I completely understand. Again, just have someone who can ground you and, maybe snap you back into reality. My mom had to do that with me sometimes where, I would be freaking out over the smallest thing, and she'd be like, Archer, this is not a life or death situation. Calm down, move on. If you have time to fix it later, you can fix it later. I understand that it's bugging you, but we really just someone who can, calmly and patiently work you through it. Sometimes support is really all you need. And sometimes, because sometimes your mind isn't enough to snap you out of it and say, okay, this is not worth the time or trouble. I need to move on. Sometimes your mind can't do that. I think sometimes it is healthy to have something to put your spare time into to, I guess, satisfy that OCD need. Like, for me, it's my room. My room is my place where I can, where I can fix it whatever way I want. And if I have the time, I can straighten out every little thing so that it's angled just the way I want. That's my place where I can channel the OCD and I can get it out. Even if I can't really do it at work or at school because we're on a time crunch, there's my room. My room is there. Art. Art is another place where, if you're a creator and you're very meticulous, if you have that time to do something, in your free time, to just hammer out details, that's your OCD sanctuary. Use it. I think that's about all I can say. Hopefully that helped. Hopefully. I really liked coming back to this topic, even if I might have, repeated myself over and over. I like talking about this, and I hope that it helps someone. This has been Archer with a Sword, signing out. Bye!